Alright, so I'm back with yet another quick Pauper deck tech. So I just wanted to show off quickly the latest version of my Steel of the Godhead deck that I've been running. So the latest version has leaned way more heavily into the energy theme as a result of running Riddlegate Gargoyle from MH3. So it's one white and a blue for a 2/2 with flying, and it says when it enters the battlefield, you get 3 energy counters, and when you attack, you may pay 2 energy. When you do, target creature you control gains lifelink until end of turn. So I made these changes as a result of suggestions from another Pauper player, which was really helpful, and I do think this latest version of the deck is a lot better and has been pretty good. Um, I also posted earlier gameplay of this deck against Blue Black Terror, and we actually won the match, which was pretty cool. So, of course, this deck is built around Steel of the Godhead, which is 3 mana for an aura. It says as long as enchanted creature is white, it gets +1/+1 and has lifelink. As long as enchanted creature is blue, it gets +1/+1 and is unblockable. So every creature in our deck is both blue and white, so we get both benefits of the Steel of the Godhead. So it gets +2/+2 and is unblockable and has lifelink. So obviously, unblockable and lifelink is incredibly powerful together because it's just repeatable life gain and damage every single turn. So this version of the list is running the not that long ago downshifted Judge's Familiar in the 1-drop slot. So it's hybrid 1 white or 1 blue mana for a 1/1 with flying. And it says sacrifice it, counter target instant or sorcery spell unless its controller pays 1. So this is great for defending our creatures from removal spells, because obviously the downside of running auras is the risk of being 2 for 1. But this is also really good at just annoying your opponent, messing with some of their draw spells, etc. It's just a really nice card, and the flying is also very useful. Then the 2-drop slots, we're running 4 copies of the aforementioned Riddlegate Gargoyle, along with 4 copies of Esper Stormblade, which is a card that I've really enjoyed thus far. It's really done very well in testing. So it's 1 hybrid white or black and 1 blue for a 2/1. And it says as long as you control another multicolored permanent, Esper Stormblade gets +1/+1 and has flying. Obviously, this deck is so full of multicolored permanents that it's very easy for this to be 2 for a 3/2 with flying. And then, as I happily noticed during the Blue-Black Terror match, Esper Stormblade is black, meaning it can't be killed by Snuff Out, which was very great for us. So this card is great even without the Steel of the Godhead on it, just 2 for a 3/2 flyer. It's evasive, it's quite a bit of damage. And then finally, we're running 2 copies of Galena's Knight, 1 white and 1 blue for a 2/2 with protection from red. Now, we have quite a few cards available to us in these colors with protection from red. So in the sideboard, I'm running 2 extra copies of Galena's Knight against red decks, as well as 2 copies of Vidalcan Outlander, which is also 2 for a 2/2 with protection from blue. Then, in terms of continuing the energy theme, since Riddlegate Gargoyle gives us 3 energy and also allows us to spend energy to give a creature lifelink, we are running 4 copies of the new card Tune the Narrative from Modern Horizons 3. 1 blue for an instant, draw a card, you get 2 energy. So of course, just simply drawing a card is not as good as Serum Visions or Brainstorm, but the fact that we get 2 energy is quite a lot. So at the moment, I have kept this in the list. Perhaps it makes sense to trim the numbers slightly, but at the moment I've been happy with it. Then the final energy, creator and payoff is the new counterspell Aether Spike. So it's 2 mana for an instant. It says choose target spell. You get 2 energy counters. Then you may pay any amount of energy, counter that spell unless its controller pays 1 for each 1 energy paid this way. So inherently this says basically counter target spell unless its controller pays 2, but in this deck we will frequently have more energy than that, meaning that this kind of becomes usually a counter spell, and the fact that it's 1 generic and 1 blue makes it a lot more castable in a multi-color deck. And then finally, our last counter spell is just 3 copies of Dispel, 1 blue, counter target instant, and that's basically there for removal, just to defend our creature once we've put the Steel of the Godhead on it. Then, in terms of the rest of our creatures, we are running 2 copies of Heliod's Pilgrim to search for Steel of the Godhead. So it's 3 for a 1/2. When it enters, you may search your library for an aura, put it into your hand. Then we are also running 4 copies of the classic Mull Drifter, which is just a really solid card. So it's performed well in here, despite the fact that it's just blue and not blue-white. We are running 4 copies of Preordain just to round out the rest of our 1-mana card draw. And then finally, we are running 2 copies of Dog Umbra from Modern Horizons 3, which is 2 mana for an aura with flash, which can basically protect our own creature and also be pseudo removal on our opponent's creatures, because it says as long as another player controls enchanted creature, it can't attack or block. So if we put that on our opponent's creature, it kind of locks it out of combat. But if we put it on our own creature, then Dog Umbra has Umbra armor, meaning that if the enchanted creature would be destroyed, instead remove all damage from it and destroy this aura. So this pulls double duty in terms of defending our creatures and removing troublesome creatures that your opponent has, making them, no longer threatening and no longer able to block. So the sideboard is still pretty rough. So as I mentioned, I've got the creatures with protection from red, got 2 copies of Relic of Progenitus, I've got some standard bearers, got Journey to Nowhere just for more removal, and then Holy Light, 3 mana for an instant. All non-white creatures get -1/-1 until end of turn. Very good against Kuldotha Red and just various weenie decks. So this deck could be running in the sideboard things like Crimson Acolyte, Obsidian Acolyte, etc. Those just fit in well with this kind of deck. But I must say, this list has felt surprisingly decent. As I said, we beat Blue-Black Terror earlier, and one of the games we didn't even draw Steel of the Godhead, and yet we still won, just with our evasive threats, our little bit of lifelink here and there off the Riddlegate Gargoyle, and our counter spells. We were able to just counter a lot of removal, counter some of our opponent's draw spells. We just were able to annoy the opponent quite a bit and disrupt their game plan. So I like this deck a lot. It's, fairly interactive. We have, a few counter spells. We've got a bit of removal, and it's pretty aggro as well. And if you get the Steel of the Godhead on a creature, that becomes a very formidable threat that your opponent has to answer quickly, or else they're in serious trouble. And then out of the lands, we are running 4 copies of the new Esper Landscape, which I've really enjoyed. Just the fact that you can use it. So essentially, it's like an Evolving Wilds where you can tap and sack, but only for lands of 3 different basic land types. But it also can tap for colorless mana, meaning that it doesn't have to slow you down. And in this deck, we aren't running that many, colored mana pips in our mana costs, at least not for the things that are 3 mana and above, etc. So sometimes you just want this untapped immediately. You want that immediate mana to be able to hardcast the Mull Drifter. You don't want to be waiting a turn like Evolving Wilds forces you to do, or like the Dual Lands force you to do. So I've really found this to be great, even though we can't make use of the cycling. It's just so great to have that fast mana or, color fixing if necessary. And finally, just 1 copy of Tranquil Cove. But anyway, that's the deck as it currently stands. I do like it a lot, and it feels pretty decent thus far. I will keep testing it, and I will keep posting gameplay. But as usual, if you have suggestions, please let me know. If you enjoyed this video or would like to keep updated with the deck lists that I play, please consider subscribing. I do appreciate it, and it really does help the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.